Morning, friends and family. John Miller, your Lake Stevens Realtor, coming out here on a Monday, October 12th. Welcome to fall. We've had a nice bout of rainy weather here in the Northwest. Hope everything is pleasant where you are, at least for the next few weeks or so as we head into winter. At any rate, let's see here. A question out of Lake Stevens, Washington. Can I sell my house as is? And that is a really big question. The answer to it is yes and no, and I'm going to tell you why that is the answer is much larger than simply a yes or a no, and it's actually both. But we get the question a lot. I've had questions from obviously a lot of our newer agents, a lot of clients, both buyers and sellers over the years. We've seen that term in purchase agreements. We've seen it, especially a lot of REO or bank REO sales. And the question is, what does it mean? And unfortunately, the answer to it is the terms as is just really don't mean much, and I'll explain why that is. The answer, can you state it in the listing that your home, the property is being sold as is? Absolutely. That's not a problem at all. And typically it's a good way of communicating to potential buyers that the seller is not going to be entertaining any kind of repairs, requested repairs from the buyer during any kind of home inspection in general. The question then is, can I put it in the purchase agreement? Can I make that a binding term in a purchase agreement? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes and no. You can certainly put it in for what it's worth. The reality is, it's in my opinion and in the opinion of a lot of other people's, it's unenforceable. And the reason for that is that language in a contract has to be promissory. And when you are making a statement that the property is being sold as is, it doesn't promise anything. Especially when you have a purchase agreement, and the vast majority of them will have a buyer's home inspection contingency. The buyer certainly has the right to rescind and has the right to address any inspection items that they want during the course of the transaction, even though the seller may have said on day one, either in the listing or even in the purchase agreement, that the property is being sold as is. So many times, for example, I've had sellers say, well, no, it's sold as is. And I said, if hypothetically the buyer had their home inspection and came back and said, we want this repair, it's going to be $100 or we're going to rescind, would you entertain that repair? And most sellers, yeah, for $100, yeah, I'd probably do it. Well, okay, then obviously the home is not being sold as is. I'll give you a direct example of this. I was the selling agent for a REO property out in Sultan many years ago. It was owned by Freddie Mac. They had the deed at the time, and they used their own purchase agreement. And there was about 4 pages of as is, where is terminology. Very heavy-handed, of course, very much in favor of the seller. The home was in very poor condition. The seller had a real drug problem and really had trashed the house. It was really bad, but we got it for a song. My buyers came in and fixed it up. It looked phenomenal. They did a great job. But regardless, during the course of the transaction, obviously the property didn't appraise. There were a myriad, a real punch list of items that the appraiser said, look, we're not going to fund this loan until these are done. And we went back to I went to the listing agent, who went to the seller, and they did. Freddie Mac I saw the invoices. There were $7,000 of repairs. I mean, all new baseboard heat, all new windows, a brand new hot water tank. I mean, on and on. They put all these things in. Well, then the question is, well, wait a minute. They said the home was being sold as is, and clearly it was not. So, is there a default? Is there a contractual, problem? Well, no. You can throw that term out there, and it's a great way of signaling to the potential buyer, look, we're not going to do all these repairs. But as it turned out, like Freddie Mac did a whole ton. That was quite a bit of repairs that we did to facilitate financing, and then ended up closing on that. So those are examples of ones that, as is, even though it sounds like a good idea, unfortunately, it's just not enforceable. It's not something we see, or I even recommend putting into purchase agreements, even from a buyer or seller standpoint. A lot of what we want is communicated verbally, or again, you can state in the listing, as is, whereas that's not an issue. But as for trying to really hammer that nail, as it were, that's a lot more difficult than it may appear. So, I know that's a lot, and it seems like a fairly large answer to a fairly simple question. But if you have any other questions regarding that, reach out to me directly. I'd be very happy to discuss that with you. Interest rates this week, 2.87%, phenomenal rates. I've talked to a lot of lenders right now, especially as we're kind of the end of the summer. A lot of lenders, or a lot of loans are getting backed up. Underwriters, processors, escrow, they're all backed up with refis right now. So transactions are taking a little bit longer, unfortunately. If you have a concern about a pending transaction, obviously let me know. Let your agent know, and they'll reach out to the lender and talk to about your projected closing date. Anyway, that's it for this week. Wherever you are, stay safe and healthy. We love you, and we'll see you next week.